From the Farm Desk, I'm Dwayne Murley.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
At AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right. I am the Truth Ruth. I don't care what any local contractors have to say about that. Joining me now, longtime contributor to this program, is David Osterberg. How are you, David?
I'm good, Mike.
All right. I'm glad to hear it. I'm just a couple of weeks. I may have mentioned this to you last week. I'm going out to Spokane, Washington here in just a couple of weeks, and it's a beautiful country. I look forward to going there. And I look for, as I said, you know where Priest Lake is there in northern.
Right.
It's a beautiful lake and looking
near Spokane.
Yeah. We're going for a ride, a boat ride around there one whole afternoon. It will be terrific. David Osterberg, I should say, was formerly with the Iowa Policy Project. He is a co-founder, as a matter of fact, and we are now Common Good Iowa.
Common Good. How about that for a name?
That's a pretty good name. I think that's a good. Yeah, I can't think of anybody arguing with the Common Good. Well, maybe a couple people.
Maybe so.
Ayn Rand comes to mind.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But is it Common Good Iowa or just Common Good?
I think it's Common Good Iowa.
All right, good. But climate change is a big deal on the West Coast. It's kind of one of the reasons I brought up my short trip to Washington State soon. The governor of California, it's just a terrible situation out there. They have high winds and dry conditions, and it's just ravaging huge parts of the state. I think it was the night before last I was watching the news. They have count them, five major wildfires going on in the California Valley right now. That's terrible. I mean, that's a beautiful part of the country, by the way. California's Central Valley is really great. California is such a big state; it has it all. I mean, you can drive through the desert, and it's cool, but you've seen the desert, believe me. But the Central Valley is a very beautiful place, and again, it's a tragedy. All these things are happening. The governor and many others say this is climate change. Would you agree with them?
I would. Yeah, I think that there's just so many things that are different now. And there's been some very good studies, actually, going back 10 years. There was one in Science. Science is probably the most prestigious scientific magazine in the United States. And found out that they took two periods of time, each around 20 years, and they looked at the number of fires that were happening, and temperature went up about a degree and a half, but the big fires, and then they measured that somehow, what big meant, went up 4 times. And the amount of land it burned went up, also like 4 times. So it wasn't like a small change, and we have to look to see whether we can identify the climate fingerprint there. It's so big that you got to say it's climate change is having a real big factor. It's not everything, of course, but it's real big.
I'm going to make you roll your eyes, even though we can't see you down there in Mount Vernon or Iowa City or where you're at. But one of the people who have been most influential in pushing back on the idea of climate change is Rush Limbaugh, frankly. Now, a lot of people, like David, will roll their eyes. I mean, Rush's education stops at Southwest Missouri State. It's a junior college, not unlike Iowa Central that we have here in Fort Dodge. And I'm not taking a shot at junior colleges. They're a tremendous economic asset to our economy. I'm a graduate of a junior college. I believe in them absolutely. But that's the extent of Rush's education. He has no experience in climate change science, but he did have the audacity to accept an invitation to a televised debate with then Senator Al Gore, who was one of the early pioneers in the political field, demanding change and warning against a climate disaster. And I have that on YouTube somewhere, and I'll tell you, Limbaugh beat him in the debate, David. I don't know if you've ever seen that debate, but he was very forceful. And of course, Al Gore, I don't care, is not a great speaker, but it was more than that. Limbaugh was simply better prepared, and I was shocked, frankly. So I'm going to ask you to do something that really goes against the grain. I'm going to ask you to argue against your own position. What are the people who are opposed to climate change action telling you?
Well, okay, here's a couple of examples. And this was a debate that I got in that I don't think I did very well on either. I said something about any place you look, the number of glaciers are decreasing. It's just happening. You know, we won't, pretty soon Glacier National Park's going to be misnamed. And this guy pointed out that's not true. And it isn't. There were a couple glaciers actually that were expanding. But in general, glaciers are going in the opposite direction. So the first thing you can't do if you're talking about climate change is to be too dogmatic. Yeah, most of the time. And I mean, you'd never say something like, isn't it true that we don't have many more hurricanes than we used to have? Yeah, that's right. But that's not the question. How powerful are those hurricanes? That's the question.
That is the question. Let me roll you back to the glaciers.
Yeah.
Is there direct, conclusive proof that the glaciers are melting because of global warming caused by climate change?
Uh-huh.
There is. And where is that information at?
Well, it's to say this, that if you have a warmer time, that ice is going to begin to melt more quickly. Therefore, a glacier that's a certain mass is going to get smaller in a warmer world than it would in one that used to exist. So, yeah, I think you could be pretty clear on mountain glaciers and climate change, as long as you don't say every single one, because it isn't every single one. It's like 90-some%.
It's 91%.
No, 90-some%. I don't know the
90-some.
percentage.
Okay.
I don't know it. But it's a very small number that are not. And again, you know, strange things happening. There are parts of Antarctica that were actually getting colder up until a few years ago.
Yeah.
And now Antarctica, the latest stuff that I've seen is that that's no longer true. All of Antarctica is getting warmer, like all of the north is getting warmer. And but it goes year by year. For instance, if you look over a long enough period of time, and that's the secret, you don't look at the derecho here in Iowa and say, that's climate change for sure. And I think that the guy I'm supporting, Biden, might have said that. You could say, though, isn't it unusual that we're getting something like a derecho? Did it happen in the 1950s? Well, maybe. But if you look at a long enough period of time, you're going to find the chances for one of those puppies happening is many, many times bigger than it ever was before. Just like flooding in Cedar Rapids. Was it ever as bad as it was in 2008? Well, as a matter of fact, it was the worst ever in 2008. But were there other years going back when you had floods? Yeah. So you have to look at a period of time. You can't just say one event, 1 year, that proves it. Over time, though, and that's why it's a scientific question. People gather, go out and get, kind of freeze their rear end sitting on a glacier up in Greenland making measurements. And if you do those long enough, you're going to find that there is a change in Greenland. It is melting faster. It is getting warmer. And it's, what are all the forces that come together in Greenland? Part of it is that Gulf Stream and that the fact that we move water from the equator up towards the north. But that, too, has a fingerprint of climate change. Climate change is just all over the place. It's warmer now than it used to be, and lots of things are the result of that.
Okay. Now, first of all, David Osterberg is our guest, formerly of the Iowa Policy Project, and now of Common Good Iowa. And climate change and economics are his thing, as you can probably tell. Let's go back to the earlier example I made in California. And I'm not going to let go of climate change is everywhere. Yeah. We're going to come back to that too. But do you believe that the terrible fires in California are the result of climate change? Are they the result of mismanagement? And I'm sure their mismanagement is part of it. What are the causes of these terrible fires as far as climate change is concerned, do you believe?
Yeah, I would say there were a whole number of things. First of all, this very long-term drought, which has just desiccated everything, and it just made it more. If it gets up, you start burning, it's going to burn. Second, the winds, that wind pattern, and there is a relationship between that and climate change as well. But you're also getting people who want to live out in the damn woods.
Yes.
And I mean, and then firefighters have to go and protect those $1 million houses. And that changes how they can fight fires. And as far as forest management, partly because of that reason, you couldn't let things burn out the way you used to. And so there's a big component of development in California also that's part of that. But when you put them all together, climate change is a big factor. The only factor? No. Big factor, you bet.
You know, that is an interesting phenomena. We don't know or appreciate really how many people are living completely off the grid.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a woman from our area a couple of years ago. They had a major fire. They found this woman living way up in the high forest somewhere. And she she had a generator, and she had no means of human contact, no cell phone, no radio or television. She just lived up there.
Yeah.
And she was reluctant to come down, even though her little ramshackle house, if you want to call it that, was filling up with smoke. I think she finally did. But I had a group of students when I was in North Carolina, or their teacher, fourth grade teacher, called me up and said, we're up here in the mountains, and the children don't really know about radio because we don't get a frequency out here, or television. I was stunned. So they came, and the children were just amazed at what they were hearing and seeing, and they were adorable little children, but they were, through no fault of the adults who were doing their best to educate them, the children were somewhat removed from the then 20th century. It's just, maybe I'm going on about something that it doesn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would be a factor, but I think that would be kind of a small factor.
Yeah, it really
again,
doesn't pertain to what we're talking about.
Sure, and the question is, are the more powerful hurricanes, are the, many times greater amount of fire burning on the west, is that climate change related? Yeah, as long as you don't say it is totally only because of climate change, you're in pretty strong territory.
I think you're all right. Yeah, I think that as well. What do we need to do? And these are pretty elementary questions. We've been talking over these many years. You've said so, but as you very well know, education is the mother, or repetition is the mother of
repetition. That's right.
Repetition is the mother.
All right, let me praise Mid-American again, which I don't like to do all the time.
I just love it when you praise Mid-American. Yes.
Mid-American. Now, the amount of wind going on in Iowa is one of the answers to climate change. And remember, I used to do these bicycle trips where I'd slap a solar panel on the back of a bike, or a trailer pulling a bike, and go out and say, when I got on, because it was unusual enough that I'd get on TV, I'd say, climate change is real, renewable energy is the answer, and farmers make money in Iowa.
Actually, and I've told you this a couple of times in the past, when I first started having you on, a couple of people came up to me and said, is that Osterberg? Is that same guy that was paddling around the rivers running for the Senate against Chuck Grassley? I said, yeah, that's him.
That's me. All right. And when I was paddling around the rivers, I was actually taking nitrate tests too. No, there was a purpose to that. We got to fix these rivers.
Well, now, how'd we do?
Now we're bad.
We didn't do
Even then we were bad. Now that was in 1998. We're worse now. We're not getting any better. We're getting worse.
Yeah. What are the consequences? Is it, people have a tendency to talk in doom and gloom and end of the world type scenarios. Is that really true to your estimation?
Well, I mean, if you want to pay, yeah. I mean, you can get shrimp. Besides having the shrimpers go off the Gulf Coast, you can get them in, from Thailand too. So it's not like doom and gloom, that because we are polluting the Gulf of Mexico will never have shrimp again. We'll have shrimp again. Just those guys, those kind of farmers too, won't have chance of doing what they did, what their grandpappy did and their pappy did for all those times.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're having a giant effect because Iowa will not get control over its nitrates. It just won't.
I have heard and talked about it with you in the past, of course, that India and China are major polluters of the environment.
Sure they are.
We have very little control over India. In fact, none.
Yeah.
China is at least willing to discuss it, but we're always suspicious of China.
Right.
Boy, what should we do with these people?
Well, China has more wind than we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have more solar than we do. They have more electric cars than we do. So are they making some progress? Yeah. But they also have more coal-fired power plants that are new. That's the other thing.
And they have that dense coal, too.
And that's why something like the Paris Accord. If we are in the Paris Accord, we have more power to push those other people and maybe make some subsidies, because India has some of the greatest potential for solar. I mean, you can imagine where it's located, and also for wind. So it really is happening that Pakistan finally is turning their back on coal and moving towards wind. They should have done it before.
Yes, they should have. Well,
And if we're in that position, we do better. That's why it matters if we're in this Paris Accord. And it's true that we're 5%, 4 or 5% of the world's population, but we're like 15% of the carbon pollution, and that's only 15%. But boy, if we are in a position and we can start pushing and we can share our technology, everybody else might start moving that direction.
Well, President Obama, I really think there's a communication problem here. President Obama used to say that he knows that American leadership on climate change will bring the world around and solve the climate change problem. And guys like me then start rolling our eyes, because I don't think China and India wants to be like us.
Well, wanting to be like us, do they want to produce electricity at a lower price? And the answer is yes, they do. And that happens to be solar and wind now. And it is so much cheaper than anything else.
Well, if it's cheaper and more efficient, I don't see why anybody would want that.
Right, and it's happening.
Right.
So as much as our present president hates, remember wind turbines cause cancer? Or that idiot thing he said? I mean, as much as he hates this, solar and wind in the second quarter of this year, I just saw the numbers,
clever enough, and when Sam Clovis is on the air, we're doubly clever. Sam, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm not sure I would buy that. I think sometimes when the two of us get together, that we spiral in a downward motion more rapidly than if each of us did by ourselves.
Well, I told you, Congressman King told me a couple of times that he had to watch himself around me because I might get him to say something way too conservative. And I'm going, I'm more conservative than Congressman King by his estimation. Wow.
That's pretty tall cotton.
That's way tall cotton. No, we get on to, he's a very deep thinker, and I hope whatever he does in next in life contributes to our community and to our state and to our country. You told me last week he was writing a book, right?
Well, he's about to get it published. I think that is very revealing. I think I've had a preview of it. I think it is one of the. It will be hard hitting, and I think there will be a lot of people trying to explain themselves.
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be kind of a revenge book, Sam. I know you don't want to characterize it that way, but I know he was pretty mad at what he called the John Boehner wing, the middle of the road country club Republican types who just wanted to manage the economy to their benefit. And they would, anytime they wanted something, they'd put a stranglehold on food stamps, and the Democrats would give them the tax break that they wanted. And that's the way it went over and over and over and over again. Steve King was a true culture warrior. He did not believe you could support a free market and capitalism and freedom itself with a moral relativism, a point, by the way, and a feeling and an ideology that I agree with him 100%. The people who are in the Republican Party, and there's three wings to the Republican Party, the way I look at it, but the country club Republicans, the business class Republicans who don't care anything about tax policy and keeping wages low and all those sorts of things, they're going to lose in the end. They're going to lose in the end. Pretty soon, there's not going to be any place for them to run. They think they can take their money and go overseas or to some tax shelter in the Caribbean. No, they can't. Not in the future. Maybe they can right now, but that's not going to work for them.
Not under Biden and the Democrat Congress, they can't.
Oh, look, Biden is one of them, really, for one thing. I mean, what he's going to do is pay off the people who put him in office. Of course he is. But he's not going to get too carried away. I mean, I will say this. I do want to talk about the debate the other night because there was really nothing to talk about.
Debate.
It was not a debate at all. But we'll pick it up in just a little bit because of the terrible journalism of Chris Wallace. But the fact of the matter is they're not going to be able to do that. You have to have a strong moral people to support your position. And right now, business is 100% behind Joe Biden. Yep.
I wouldn't go all in on that, but I think you're pretty close.
All right, 90%. We see it all the time. I'm still trying to run down a rumor we had here in town. A large agricultural concern, one of their employees got in an argument with an African-American person. Well, the white person apparently stood up very strongly, and the black person called his employer, who fired him the same day. Just not that his work was insufficient or anything, is that he had gotten an argument with this black person. And that was enough to cost him his job. And that's a form of micro-terrorism, if you ask me.
It is, yeah. So just because they disagreed, that it had nothing to do with race, but it's just because they disagreed.
Well, and I haven't named any names, and I'm not going to name any names, of course, until I have it all together. But that's, and the people who have told me this so far, that's one side of the story as far as I'm concerned. He may have said something, he may have made some accusation that was racist in intent, but simply disagreeing with Black Lives Matter or any civil rights position for that matter is not de facto proof of racism to my mind.
Well, I think that a lot of this is the idea. This is why you couldn't criticize Obama, because if you did, you were a racist.
Right.
It had nothing to do with the policies that were incredibly bad, but the fact that you disagreed. Therefore, the baseline of that must be that you must be a racist. I've been accused of that, as have many conservatives, and I think that this is endemic in our culture. And the worst part of it is there are very few Republicans that will stand up to it.
Oh, they won't do that. They think they can buy people off.
We were not allowed to when I was going through my confirmation battle, and I got accused of racism and being a misogynist and all of those things. I was not allowed to defend myself for political reasons. And I think that that's wrong. I think that we ought to be able to defend ourselves. We ought to be able to present proof that we are not racist. And I think that is and the thing that has always disappointed me, Mike, is the fact that when you have conservatives stand up for themselves, when they stand up for the country, and they happen to disagree with the Democrat position or a progressive position, it has to be because you are fundamentally flawed intellectually, or you have you are a racist, or you are, like Obama described us, as we are people who cling to our religion and our God.
That's right. I love that. And by the way,
that's where I think we get categorized. It's like calling me a radio talk show host. Yes, I was. And I was a very successful one.
That's right.
As I was successful in every other career endeavor I was ever in, and I have been in many.
That's all you have to say to some people, radio talk shows. Oh, well, you're an idiot then.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Come on here and tell me what an idiot I am. I'm ready for you anytime.
Yeah, but tell me what an idiot I am.
Well, they won't do that on this radio.
Yeah, we compare pedigrees.
Yeah. Well, I often offer to let liberals come on here and have a say and argue with me if they want to or not, but they have not showed up yet, and I don't think that they will, because it gives credence. It gives me credibility if they're on my show. Ha! Like I need them for credibility. And let's not forget, by the way, what was one of the cruelest, most racially tainted things ever said during the Obama presidency? Well, that would have been by Senator Harry Reid, the Democratic leader at the time, who said that Barack Obama was an articulate Negro. I would never see anything like that. What kind? That is obviously racially tinted. That oh gosh, we have this Negro who can actually speak well. That seemed to surprise Harry Reid. And let's not forget further that Robert Byrd, the great Democratic senator from West Virginia in the late 40s and early 50s, was a grand wizard in the Ku Klux Klan. And nobody said anything to him all the while he was in the Senate through the turbulent 60s, 70s, and 80s and into the 90s. The press left him alone because he said, well, I had to join those organizations to get elected. Think about that.
It doesn't matter, but
I had to be a grand wizard to get elected.
Yeah, so I had to become the top of the entire Ku Klux Klan organization in West Virginia to get elected.
And these are leaders in the Democratic Party. Harry Reid, especially, that's hideously racist. Hideously, it's disgustingly racist. And no one said anything. Not even Obama.
Well, Obama was a racist, but you can't be a racist if you're African American. You can't be a racist if you're Asian, you can be racist. You can't be racist if you're Hispanic, and so we have two. This is the other thing. This is it's convoluted and deep argument. I won't get into it, but the issue is that the protections that we have in the Constitution and that we have for the 14th Amendment protections are there to protect people by primary characteristics: gender, age. We go through disability, and then we have others that are and race. Then we have others that are classified by religion, and military service. So we have 6 protected classes, okay? Those are primary, what we consider 4 primary characteristics and traditional, okay? So we have 6 protected classes. Now we have thrown into that, or at least is in the process of throwing into that, constitutional protections under the 14th Amendment for people who have the tendencies toward homosexuality, or polyamorous relationships, or are bisexual, and
I'm losing track about how many identities one person can have. For God's sake,
and people who question their gender. None of those are considered primary characteristics or traditional protections that we would have, and yet all of those now have come under some essence of penumbra of the Constitution.
The penumbra.
The penumbra, yes, of the stretch of the protections of the 14th Amendment. So now you can see that the 14th Amendment and how it's been applied to all of these now different categories. So you don't know them all unless you got a play card. And every one of them, if you violate them, you know, you could trigger some kind of microaggression or aggression on the part of being, because you're white or Asian, then any of those that you could cross the line with any group there. And the other part of it is 4 of those are primary characteristics, 2 are traditional, and the others, who knows?
Well, you forgot toxic masculinity, I think, Sam. I've been accused of being...
That's part of being white.
Yeah.
That's part of being white.
Yeah. Well, I've been accused a couple of times of suffering from toxic masculinity. You see, what we should do is evolve into a place where white men are comfortable being poodles and being led around by a chain. Now, there's a lot of, surprisingly, business people who would be comfortable with that for their own reasons. But I don't think we'll be doing that around this radio station, at least in this room, for a couple of months yet. What are you doing? Having a drink while you're talking to me? What is it? Is it cocktail time at the Veterans Hospital, or what's going on?
No, I just finished. I've been having to drink a lot of water, so I've just finished up. I apologize to the listeners for my crude behavior.
That's all right. They're listening.
They're
used to it.
I haven't used any swear words yet today.
Well, that's good.
That's a good thing. I'm progressing. I'm learning. Yeah.
Growth.
I'm trying to get back in the mode of being on a radio talk show host.
There you go, buddy.
Yeah.
There you go. How is your health these days?
Oh, great. I'm doing better. Therapy's coming along. It's still a little continuity is an issue, and that has to do with staffing here at the Sioux Falls Hospital. But overall, I'm doing extremely well. I would like to, just for a moment, I know you've probably done a postmortem on the clown show that we had last Tuesday night or whatever.
Yeah, but go ahead. I guess we'll have to talk about it.
Well, I just wanted to say it was a clown show. It was like, dude, it was like 3 10-year-olds out on the playground yelling at each other for 90 minutes. It was a long recess break and 3 10-year-olds out on the yard yelling at each other. It was horrible.
Well, I will point out, and somebody in my position would do this. I kept an eye on Chris Wallace. His performance was horrible, frankly. I mean,
of the 3, he was by far the worst.
I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Trump even called him out. Am I debating him, pointing at Biden, or am I debating both of you? And that was a legitimate question to the supposedly conservative Fox News host. All of a sudden, he's a big hero. But if he's going to ask Donald Trump, if he's going to put him on the spot like that and ask him to repudiate the Proud Boys and white supremacists, that's fair to me. That's fine.
Yep.
Then he's got to turn to Biden and say, will you absolutely repudiate and reject the anarchists and the Antifa people and the violent people on your side of the aisle? He didn't, and Biden wouldn't. That somehow hasn't been discussed in the media at all. It was, oh, Trump did this, and oh, he's a white supremacist, and on and on and on and on and on. Maybe I don't really think so, but maybe. But Biden is a coward, and he's dishonest to go with that. But
Well,
that wasn't.
We knew that ahead of time.
Yes, we did. But it was not highlighted because Chris Wallace, Mr. Wonderful, who wanted to appear acceptable to the Georgetown Country Club crowd, wouldn't do it. He wanted to go and get a little standing O from all the nice, well-educated liberal people that live in his neighborhood. That's really it. He'd rather do that.
Yeah.
He couldn't stand for truth. He couldn't stand for truth.
For journalistic integrity, there's no, those two words used in the same sentence is an insult to integrity, because there is no journalistic integrity anymore. I was telling my wife last night, to call journalism a profession has been a stretch for 40 years. It's really always been a craft. But journalism, true journalism, to get to the truth, has gone by the wayside over the last 20 years, because I think since the advent of the internet, the proliferation of the internet, ubiquitousness of the internet, journalism has gone from being centered in the power centers of Chicago and Washington and New York and Los Angeles and Atlanta, has gone from those great bastions of journalism, and they were, to now it's all migrated to Silicon Valley, because everything now is done on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and the number of clicks that you can get on your website. And the more clicks you get, all of that is predicated on how salacious the headlines are and how salacious the material is that you're reporting. I went on and did a look the other day. Google my name, go on there, and 90% of what was offered in the first 10 pages of a Google search, 90% was predicated on complete falsehoods or was laced with falsehoods about me that were generated by either anonymous sources or people who would not come forward, or reliable sources that chose to remain anonymous, and or clearly unsourced altogether. The first 10 pages, and 540,000 hits altogether. And it's just incredible. And think about think about Mike Flynn. Think about Carter Page. I talked to Carter just 2 days ago. Think about Carter Page. Think about all of us and what we've gone through. And you don't see any reporting out there about the falsehoods that were generated against us, and all of the falsehoods that are generated about the president. And this is where we are today.
Oh, there's a Facebook meme or site, the other 98%. Even Vox and some of the liberal web checking sites have said that most of the things, or a good percentage of the things that you read on the other 98% are totally false, without merit.
Correct.
I mean,
correct.
But a lot of people repost them and believe them.
Oh no, I know. I am one of those people who has had the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, you name the outlet that put out their stories that are absolutely total fabrications.
Yes.
And worse, it gets repeated among those outlets, and then it gets kicked over to Facebook and Twitter, and it gets proliferated that way, and it's all false. It's totally false, and yet it's put out there as news, and it's made up.
It's probably the Russians trying to undermine the really good people.
There you go.
It's always got to be the Russians or some god-awful thing. White supremacists, they're the same thing, I guess. Jeez. Just this is the most embarrassing and disgusting and hateful group I've seen ever in my life. and I've been alive a long time, I don't think there has been a group allowed to burn a section of a major American city while having the mayor apparently approve and blame it on the president. I can't believe I'm seeing that. And people like, Sam's gone. We'll have to come back and get Sam. It's 3:31. This is AM 1400 KVFD.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
At AM 1400 KVFD.
News is coming up.
During this challenging and unprecedented time, Gunderson's is here to serve with expert guidance and understanding to each family and their unique needs. We provide options for funeral, cremation, memorial, virtual, and webcast services, either presently or at a later date. We understand
who, well, I'll just say really needs no introduction in this part of the world anyway. How you doing again, Sam?
Doing great. How about you?
I'm doing real fine. I want to talk to you about another debate, Teresa Greenfield versus Joni Ernst. What'd you think?
Well, I didn't get a chance to watch that. I was in the middle of something when that was on,
Okay.
and what I heard was that one candidate appeared very angry, and the other candidate appeared flat. And I think one can surmise, that I think the Democrat was extremely angry and portrayed herself that way, particularly when they did side-by-side pictures. And I think that the other part and this is from multiple sources, so this isn't a single source. And then I also heard that Joni was, I think, calmer, but to the point where she was almost flat. And her delivery style is not conducive to that kind of an environment, I don't think.
She's not Joni on the bike anymore, I'll tell you.
Not at all.
I think Washington, D.C. has changed her. I think she won that debate, but it wasn't a convincing victory. Teresa, right. I mean, both candidates repeated their party's platform and their party's narrative, and that was the end of that. I
think if you're going to be in office, or if you run for office, you need to have 4 decimal place of knowledge, encyclopedic knowledge of the things that you have done or not done, what the policies are, or what you support and don't support. But in Joni's case, she should have said 100 times that I supported President Trump on this issue. I am with President Trump on this issue. I think the country needs to be going this way, as President Trump has said. She needed to grab President Trump by the belt and pull him close, and the two of them going into battle together. That is what I would have done had I been in that position.
I'll tell you, I've heard from fellow conservatives, traditionalists, that Joni Ernst Joni Ernst hasn't done that much for Iowa.
No, she hasn't. No.
That she seems to have gone to, she is open to the charge that she's gone to Washington and forgot about us. I mean, the way she looked the other night kind of spoke to that. She is not the ex-lieutenant colonel girl that grew up in Red Oak and just a plain Iowa girl who rode a motorcycle and liked hog roast. She was her hair was very well done. Of course, it had to be, and I'm not trying to compare her with male candidates or make a judgment about her ability based on her appearance or her gender at all. But I will say it seemed like, to put this in a little bit of context, it's like we had a candidate last time, if he were a male, who showed up in work clothes ready to go to work. Not a lawyer, not some stuffed shirt. Somebody who was that rural Iowa who elected her could relate to.
Well, I think, they get the idea sometimes that there's a bit of haughtiness to her now that may not have been there before, or at least was not portrayed before. I think that this is an idea that for a lot of people is really off-putting. If you're an Iowan, you ought to act like an Iowan. And I think David Young does that to a great extent. Steve King certainly did. And because I think of all of the congressmen we've ever had, including Tom Latham and some of the others, since I've lived in Iowa, I've been here 20 years now, that this is I have seen that reflected more in the guys from the rural districts than from those that are not. And I think that is understandable. The other part of this, though, and I want to get to this point, is that we have a candidate in the 4th district that refuses to debate the other candidate, and I think that is absolutely unacceptable.
I know you're not a Randy fan.
Oh, well, it's not. I wouldn't care if it was Randy or Steve or whomever it was. If Steve refused to debate, he might be on Steve like a robin on the June bug too, because I think you deserve that both candidates ought to be able to have the confidence to go out and debate. Steve debated Christy Vilsack 7 times.
Yeah.
And if we had, when I was in that Senate race in 2013 and 14, we had 36 separate forums and debates. 36.
Yeah.
Almost one a week. And it made a huge difference in the end. And so those are the kinds of things I think that we all, if you're going to run for office, you ought to have the willingness to debate your opponent.
Well, I want to get back to Joni Ernst just for a minute. And you understand the radio business and marketing, and in rural areas especially. We contacted Teresa Greenfield, and she's on the air right now. She's on the air on this radio station, which again has a lineup that includes Rush Limbaugh and me.
Yep.
She's on this radio station making a pitch to people who may or may not vote for her, but are more inclined not to. Joni Ernst, by the way, when we contacted her, said, "Oh, we're not doing radio. We're not doing radio." Now, I'm going to tell you where this comes from. She has hired an East Coast media firm who apparently believes that every place in the country is a major metro area with internet and television and all these other things. That's not who we are in Iowa. In Iowa,
Nope.
we have a little bit of TV in our larger towns. We have a newspaper that we usually trust, the Fort Dodge Messenger. It's kind of a bore. And we have radio. Radio is still a thing out here.
92% of people in America listen to the radio every week.
That's right.
92%.
And it might be
we have
more.
only the daily access to the internet affects only 60% of Iowans. Only 60%. And so that's daily access to the internet. So this is the thing that people miss in rural states or flyover country, is that radio dominates, and believe it or not, it dominates in urban areas as well.
The point being is Joni Ernst's campaign is being run by people who don't understand our state at all.
She does. Why isn't she stepping in?
I don't know if she's not that confident, or she's been sold a bill of goods, or perhaps she has been out in Washington, D.C. Too long. I mean, that happens with Supreme Court justices. There's always an accusation when a conservative like David, oh gosh, now I see his name, George Bush put him in, what was David? Anyway, he was just a guy from a small town in New Hampshire. Souter, that's who I'm trying to think of, David Souter. And he was kind of a moderate to right-wing conservative, a country club Republican, as I like to say. He got to Washington, turned into a liberal. And he got turned into a liberal because all these beautiful people started paying attention to him. And they started deferring to him and groveling to him, as inevitably happens. That's what happened to Joni Ernst. Here's this girl from Red Oak, and all of a sudden, all these media luminaries are deferring to her. And all these people are groveling in her powerful presence. And she's eating it up. She's lost track of who she is and where she came from.
Well, I will be even more cynical, and I will just say this because
you think that was cynical,
huh? Me being cynical, go figure. But this is what I think. I think that a lot of this was there all along, and that the Republican voters of Iowa were deceived from the start. And I think that I'm not putting this just on Joni. This happens with a lot of candidates that go out there and they campaign one way to get elected. And if we had scratched the paint a little bit, we would have seen truly who they were. And the whole issue for I think was that she started reading her own press clippings, and away she went. And this happens to athletes. This happens to all kinds of celebrities. They come up and they start reading their own press clippings, and when they find out is that, well, maybe you weren't that good.
That's
and
right.
It's just not. And I think with her, a lot of us who campaigned with her saw her almost every day, for those of us that campaigned with her, saw this a mile away and saw it coming, and we had said so. And because we're Iowa nice, we didn't bring up a lot of this on the campaign trail. And because we wanted to campaign on the issues, and personalities needed to stay out of it. And that's what we did. And I think there are people who would have been able to have identified this particular trait in her all the way back during her initial campaign for the Senate.
Well, she won kind of by she won in one of the strangest ways I'll ever remember. Bruce, who was the Waterloo lawyer that she was?
Braley.
Bruce Braley. Yeah, he was a congressman, and he was 35 points up. He was killing Joni Ernst at the beginning of the election year. And he comes out with this. Some aide of his, some guy who worked in his campaign, was dumb enough to record him down at Texas at a trial lawyers organization saying, if you don't elect me, you're going to have somebody who knows nothing about the law, and she won't feed you, and all this, and just on and on and on and on. And that killed him.
You're going to have a non-lawyer as the head of the judiciary.
Right, non-lawyer head of the judiciary. Anyway, it just killed him. I mean, the polls went the other way almost overnight. I've never seen a man blow such a huge lead in right before the election. I just, and again.
Well, and the second shoe to drop was the idea of him suing his neighbors over the chickens.
That's right.
That was the second shoe to drop, and that put him off. That was it. He was done.
He was done.
Because I don't think Joni ran that good a campaign.
No.
But I think she was the right person at the right time, and she ran against a horrible candidate in Bruce Braley.
He was so bad he had to leave the state. I think he's out in Colorado.
Oh yeah. And, you know, and don't ever take anything away from a person who wins a U.S. Senate seat. That is no small feat. And so I ran against her. She beat me like a Missouri mule, and then I went out and campaigned hard for her, and I don't regret that one bit. But I think there were a lot of us that saw exactly what was going to happen, and we could have predicted this, and we would have been right.
Well, I didn't know all those things, but I do know if there's one thing that people in Iowa hate, it's elitism. The idea that they're being looked down on. It beat Roxanne Collin when she first ran against Terry Branstad. Nobody knew who the hell Terry Branstad was. He was some legislator from Lake Mills in northern Iowa, for God's sake. And they're cruising along, and Roxanne's talking about, Terry Branstad's terrible. He's a rich guy. He's going to serve the rich. And it turns out she's a lot richer than Branstad. And she's got a lot of
way richer,
and she's got a lot of elitist views. And poof, I should say, she was gone. And Branstad was the longest serving governor in history in the nation. Anyways, Sam Clovis has been our guest. Sam, we're going to have to go. It's always great to talk to you. Thank you so much. And get out of that hospital, will you?
All right. We'll see you soon, Mike.
All right, man. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
By the way, the real mayor of Fort Dodge will be here in about 15 minutes. News coming up.
With United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plans, there's so much to take advantage of.
Hatfield. Senate Leadership Fund paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. www.senateleadershipfund.org.
Divine Intervention at AM 1400 with Mayor Matt Bemrick.
Boss, head man, top dog, big cheese, a head honcho.
Call now. 515-955-1400.
That's right. The Big Cheese is here, Matt Bemrick. So if you have a question or comment for the mayor of Fort Dodge, it's 515-955-1400, 515-955-1400. How you doing, man?
I'm good.
All right. You got your Cardinals hat on today.
I do.
I guess
I have my Cardinal gear on today.
I guess I'll
I got my Bemrick sweatshirt on. And
Bemrick and Cardinals bowl.
Yeah.
No St. Edmund stuff.
No St. Edmund.
Green underwear or anything like that?
I don't think so. No.
Socks?
Most of it's black. Black socks, black underwear.
Oh, good. I don't
White undershirt.
All right.
There you go.
We're doing visuals.
Super exciting life there. Woo!
Hey, this is the way life is supposed to be. You can't handle it exciting every single day, for God's sake.
Oh, we got a call already.
Do we have? Yes, we do. By God, Bemrick could run this show by himself. I swear to God. This is AM 1400 KVFT. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Yeah. Hey, Fifth Avenue South and 30th Street there. The road's closed, but the light cycles for 2 minutes a shot on Fifth Avenue South. Can we do something about that?
You talking right there by that First State Bank and the? Is that where you're talking about on 5th South and 30th?
30th Street there by Coles.
30th Street by Coles. Oh yeah, where that road is getting all messed up. Yeah, I mean, I can ask if they can do that for a couple of days. Sure. I think that.
Well, I mean, there's no
reopened.
reason for that red light to go when the road's closed.
Well, I think it's still open to local traffic, like the people that live there.
No, they got it tore up. It's all tore up.
They do
There's
have it tore up
nothing
now.
going down that road.
I saw they put the road closed sign there the other day, but I haven't been by there. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
but I mean, that's
ask
been
them
that
if
way,
they
and-
can do that.
Yeah, and then hey, go Cardinals.
Go Cardinals.
All right. Thanks a lot. Yeah, get off my phone.
I'm sorry. That wasn't exciting enough for you, Mike.
No, it's the when you've been beat twice by Miami, you're touchy.
Well, you guys are supposed to. I think you're playing right now.
How we doing?
Oh, I mean,
I haven't had a chance to watch the game. I've been doing this,
Oh, yeah, pesky day job getting in the way. Let's see. Scores. Oh, no. You're not playing at all right. Postponed.
Yeah, the Marlins, Miami
Mhm.
Marlins.
They're up on you 1-0.
I've got a thing for them since 2003, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
That was painful. What was that poor guy's name? Bartman, Steve Bartman.
Yep.
Yeah, that poor guy. Anyway, we don't want to talk about that because I'll start screaming. So, Denny Plotz was in here earlier, and Lydia Shore,
Mm-hmm.
and they talked about a great project. I thought they're going to do a film documentary. Denny said it could take several years on the history of Fort Dodge.
I've heard about this.
Have you? Oh, it's I
didn't know where they were in the development, but I knew there was some people talking about that.
Well, apparently they have partnered with Iowa Central, with Rusty out there,
Mm-hmm.
and some others, no doubt. It'll be very educated. The students themselves will carry out most of the filmmaking.
Right.
So it's very educational for them, a documentary type series,
Yeah.
a historical documentary.
Do you think you might make the history books?
Do I think I'll make the history
Yeah,
book?
you.
No.
You don't think your show might catch a glimmer of the...
Ed Breen, and I talked to them about it. The broadcast history and the media history of Fort Dodge deserves mention. The Fort Dodge Messenger, for example, at one time was a huge newspaper in Emmitsburg and Spirit Lake. Times have changed, of course.
Yeah.
But we've had a number of noted statewide and Midwest radio people at this in Fort Dodge. Ed Breen, and that's I'm going to call a archivist. I know at the University of Iowa, there's an entire file on Ed Breen, who, and I think this station, KVFD, was the third one to sign on in the state, and it may be one of the first in the Midwest. I mean, in that regard.
Okay.
I mean, the bigger stations, like WCCO in Minneapolis and WHO in Des Moines, some of those got to their license before this one did.
Sure.
But KVFD has a long
history
and distinguished history, right?
Yeah.
And KWMT, the same thing. There's a lot of
540. Yeah. I mean, you can still get 540 in Nebraska.
Oh, yeah. It's five states, five-state
Yeah.
coverage. And as I was telling Lydia and Dennis when they were on, it's KWMT because the owner of WMT Radio in Cedar Rapids owned this one too.
Oh.
So we couldn't have WMT here, so we had KWMT up here. Ben Quarton of I don't know what his business was called way back then, but his daughter or granddaughter has NRG Media to this day, I think. So yeah, a lot of broadcast.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of areas. The old
there's a ton of history in this community.
The old Lutheran hospital.
I mean, there's actually a lot of famous people from here.
Oh yeah.
Both in TV, there's a lot of people that left here in movie and like did Hollywood type production things.
Sam Markoff.
Yeah.
Loved that guy. I love some of his movies. They were so cheesy, but I loved them. I just loved those movies.
There's a lot of history here.
There is a lot of history. And of course, we started out as a frontier fort. And I would challenge some of the students at Iowa Central to find out and call me by tomorrow where the first fort was in Fort Dodge. I know, you probably know as well. But try to find that out there, young students. And I even got to tell Lydia something that since she is a native of Fort Dodge, but I asked her who were some of the first settlers over at East Lawn.
Oh.
The Italians.
Yeah. That was a very Italian area around Holy Rosary, East Lawn.
Yep.
That whole area.
And that's where we got the spaghetti dinners.
That's this Sunday.
Is that this Sunday?
Yes, it is.
Oh, right. I used to love those.
Now it's at Corpus Christi, but
Corpus
over
Christi
at the Paris Center there. But yeah, I believe this Sunday's the spaghetti dinner.
When's the new church opening up?
It's open.
Oh,
they had a grand opening
last Sunday
celebration last Saturday and Sunday, I believe.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay, so is it going to be open for services this Sunday then?
I'd have to look at the Facebook page or their web page. I'm not sure what the mass times are and how many people are letting go and all that stuff yet.
The history of Catholicism is interesting.
There's a lot of Catholic history here,
and we still have 6 Lutheran churches.
Yeah,
a lot of Lutheran history.
A lot of Lutherans, a lot of Catholics.
So I wish them well in their project.
Yeah.
I think it's very worthwhile. I do, and they've involved Roger Natty and some of the people who
good
certainly have a great grasp.
Yeah, Roger's written a couple of different books, and
he has.
There's a lot of people that are very active in the documenting of the history of Fort Dodge. So
I wasn't exactly sure. Well, this is why I thought Fort Dodge was nicknamed Little Chicago, is because there was crime here, and Al Capone supposedly stayed here.
It was skyscrapers.
Exactly.
Yes.
That I found that out from Natty. I had lunch with him, and we were doing a history. I can't remember what it was. We were doing some kind of history thing. I think I was working with the fort people on this. But anyway, yeah, he told me that the buildings downtown are actually modeled after some of the buildings in Chicago, the skyscrapers in Chicago.
Something to do with the World's Fair that was in Chicago, and then a group of businessmen came back here and were like, "We're going to develop our own mini Chicago."
And it sounded like they did too. So a lot of history. I could talk about it a long time. We should probably address a little bit of city business here since you are the mayor. So anyway, I don't know what the big crisis was about driving through Crawford Park. I don't get that.
Yeah, the fun haters came through for you.
The fun haters came through. Well, I was worried that there may be some fun haters there, but it was a unanimous vote.
They were unanimous to allow driving across.
Well, they have my official seal of non-fun haters for the week.
All right. Wow. They'll be very pleased to hear they made it off your fun haters list.
Yeah.
They haven't elevated to Dinklaw level.
Just calm down over there.
They haven't elevated themselves to Dinklaw level.
No.
But they took a step in the right direction.
You know what Dinklaw said about you? You know what he said?
What he said?
You're a fun hater.
I am definitely
to which I replied,
Bemrick's
a fun hater. I don't know. I think he eats up that fun pretty good. But I didn't catch all that. I was glad to hear from Councilman Menke, your arch nemesis.
He is? Is he like my Dr. Luther?
Yeah, Lex Luthor.
Lex Luthor?
Lex Luthor. Yeah, he's got two. Yeah. He'll take that on proudly. I know he will. But that we are and I didn't see this. I didn't even watch the meeting on Zoom, which I do occasionally. But he said there was some discussion and some movement on the broadband issue here in Fort Dodge, which I hope we can move forward.
Yeah, we have some meetings next week with potential operator type organizations that would help figure out exactly what to build and how to manage it and those kind of things. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
there's
would
like
be
a subcommittee working on that, made mostly of staff. But
well, a lot of people think I'm anti-Mediacom. I'm not, but I sure want better service. And the best way we can get better
competition
service
usually breeds good service.
That's right. That's why we have so many great electrical firms in town, right?
Sure.
No, but I do believe that we need competition, and that would be a good thing, because Mediacom I don't think is going away no matter what happens.
No.
No.
Yeah, and really with the deregulation and taking media company or providers to a statewide franchise, it took a lot of the opportunity for local governments and local community members to have a voice with those organizations.
Yeah.
And that happened a number of years ago. I think it was like early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. And really, I think that's where you saw the level of service start to fall down, because there's just not a lot of accountability to anybody other than at a state level, and to file a complaint through that process versus finding someone on a local level to file that with.
Sure.
Is just much more difficult.
Yeah.
So,
well,
it really created a separation from their customers, probably to the detriment of customer service. It may have improved other aspects of how they invest or where they invest. I don't know. I'm sure they could give you their reason why that was a better thing for them. But from my perspective as a community member and as the mayor, I think that's the most noticeable thing from my perspective, is they lost their customer service base then.
Boy, they sure did. They sure did. You just can't treat people that way, I'll
No.
tell you. Anyway,
it wouldn't work in my business
No,
model.
God, no. Well, and I talked about that before the vote. My God, what business in town can tell you to go sit out there for 4 hours?
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
who else can get away with that?
I get people that get upset with us if we're like 5 minutes late.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you had a 10 a.m. appointment, we have people that'll call at 10:05 and go, "Hey, that guy's not here yet." And we're like, "Hey, he's on his way. He's finishing packing up his truck at the other one. He'll be there shortly."
He'll be there, yeah.
But man, they get worried if you're not there at the time you said you were going to be there. We try to be good about calling ahead and telling people, "Hey, our guy's running 15 minutes behind today. He ran into some issues at the other job. He'll be there shortly." But
yeah,
it escapes us every once in a while too.
I'll tell you something. That's part of our culture in Iowa, promptness. If you say you're going to be somewhere at 10, you better be there at 10.
I think staff and people that attend a lot of meetings with me would tell you I'm usually early to meetings. I try to always be 5-10 minutes early, because I don't like to have other people sitting waiting for me to show up to something. I just don't think it's fair to them and their time.
Moved to North Carolina back in the 80s. Everybody was moving out of Fort Dodge at the time, but I moved to North Carolina. It was one of the first things I had to get used to. I don't know if I ever did, was that if you said 10 o'clock appointment out there, it was more of a concept. I had
It'd be around.
Yeah, in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, did I say Monday? I meant like maybe Tuesday or Wednesday.
Oh, when I said I'd stop by tomorrow, that meant tomorrow, like a couple days from now.
I had an appointment. No kidding. I had an appointment with a banker. His first name was Mike as well, and I remember him. And I showed up on time to the appointment, and he was like 20 minutes, half hour late. And I was a little annoyed. He didn't even bring it up, first of all. And I said, "Wasn't our appointment for like 1?" And he said, "Yeah, I was out to lunch with some guys, and I guess we just got to talking."
Yeah, that would not work.
That would not
here.
work.
Yeah, people in Iowa would be like, "Well, then you know what? I've got other things to do too. I'm going to go find a different bank."
Yeah, well, I said something. I excused myself early. I said, "I think I got to get to work, or I think I got to go get in my car or something."
I mean, a lot of times I'll be in meetings with people that have extremely hectic schedules and they're busy people. So I just try to respect their time and make sure I'm prompt.
Sure.
And if I'm going to be late, I typically will call and say, "Hey, here's what's going on. I'm going to be late." I mean, you and I doing the show for a number of years, I've had to give you a call, and I try to call you away in advance and be like, "Hey, Mike, I've got some issues. I might not be able to make it there today. Or if I am, I'm going to be late." I've always tried to be pretty.
Yeah, you've been good. You
good about being here and being on time.
I forgot Menke was going to take a day off here a while ago. He's going to take another day off October 14th. He left me a Post-it note and put it on the control board in typical Menke fashion.
He's helping you help yourself.
He's helping me help myself is right. So is there any other business? I was glad to see that.
This time of year, it's really not the sexiest time of the year for city government.
I thought summer wasn't.
Budget periods, kind of a busy time where you're hearing us talk about a lot of different things that are coming up or projects that are going to get done or which one might get slipped to the following year or whatever. Then you hit the construction season where you start awarding a bunch of contracts and you start hearing about things that we had planned for from the year before. And then fall comes and basically it's just trying to get roads open and get things buttoned up and get public works all ready for winter and parks start closing down and different things like that. And there's just not as much to do it's kind of just the humdrum run of the city at this point. School's back in, people are busier with other things. You just don't hear a lot of big things happen in the fall. Sometimes we'll bid a couple of projects in like September or October with the idea that we're getting premium good pricing for the spring because people are trying to get something on their plate for 2021 or the following year. So they get super competitive in their bidding. But I'm not sure if we're doing any of that this year. Oh, no, we are. I think we have some sewer work that's going to bid in October. Yeah, I'll check on that.
This town's a different town since you've been mayor, I got to tell you. Well, actually,
since Lutz, and we've had some great councils through that period of time. Some very busy council people that were always active and wanting to make improvements and change the kind of the culture. And in organizations like the Growth Alliance, Community Foundation, you name it, our school district's gotten stronger and made major investments. You got good leadership there. I mean, you just got a lot of good things going on in our community.
We fought a big battle.
It takes the whole group of us to make it work.
Yeah.
County government, city government, good school, strong school systems, both public and private. You got great leadership out at Iowa Central from the top down. I mean, they got a great board. They got a great president out there. He's got a lot of great people working. So it's a great time to live in Fort Dodge.
I'd really say the quality of the media has really improved in the last 12 years. I'll tell
you. The show, we were talking about it before I came on air. I still, to this day, am surprised how many people just come up and say, hey, I heard you and Mike the other day on the radio. I really like listening to you too.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have to go back to an hour after election season's over and we get, things going. When
I'll just have to be more prepared.
We'll get into November and December and we'll start working on capital improvement planning.
Yeah.
And then you take that and you start working on budgets. So it gets a little more exciting when you'll get people, I want this project versus that project kind of conversation.
And Meyer is coming up. I want to ask you, education is the biggest budget item in the state budget. Is it in the city budget as well?
Well, the city, we don't fund any education.
County does.
No, the school district themselves has their own levies.
Okay.
Yes. They have their own taxing authority.
All right. So the city doesn't even get to vote on education spending?
Well, the city government doesn't. You as a population get to vote, whether it be on the PEPL or whatever it might be. You get to direct some of that funding. And the rest of it is all done by the school board and the superintendent and his staff.
What is then the biggest budget item in the city budget?
Police and fire.
Police and fire. Okay.
Public safety.
All right. Matt Bemrick has been our guest. Thank you, Matt.
You bet.
All right. This is AM 1400 KVFT.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
My name is Kate Courtley.
job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right. And my guest is Representative Ann Meyer, House District 9. How are you, Ann? Here, I should really do you the courtesy of turning on your microphone if I'm going to talk to you here on the radio station. So, sorry. How are you, Ann?
I'm good. I'm good.
Right.
How are you?
Really good. Last weekend, there was a social media allegation of racial prejudice. And it caught the eye of the media. Certainly I was on it. Rob Jones was on it. The Messenger was on it. And we got a statement then from Mr. Brad Johnson of South Central Calhoun School District, one of the schools involved, the other being Southeast Valley. And there was, to make a long story and a long statement short, I will say that Mr. Johnson and others found no proof at all that there were any racial remarks made during the Southeast Valley, South Central Calhoun football game. Now, since then, and I have asked Mr. Johnson a couple of questions by email, and I just sent them today, so I can't expect him to have responded already. But Mr. Johnson has put out a second statement, and this is what it says. This is in part what it says. After carefully reviewing all investigative data, it was confirmed that South Central Calhoun coaches and school officials knew nothing of the allegations toward Southeast Valley football players until Saturday morning via a Facebook post. In addition, evidence confirmed that conversations between both Southeast Valley and South Central football players took place during last Friday night's high school football contest. However, no substantiated evidence was provided to determine whether racial slurs were part of these conversations. To determine these facts, collected data set out to answer these questions: what was said, who said it, to whom it was said. Based on the data and evidence collected, none of these three questions could be answered with specific details related to the accusations. Now, Mr. Johnson goes on to say the South Central Calhoun Community School District will continue to educate students, student athletes, and staff regarding racism, tolerance, and injustice. The following actions are inclusive but not limited to this continued education goal. A second joint meeting with Southeast Valley administration, coaches, ADs, with invitations extended to House Representative Mike Sexton and House Representative candidate Charles Clayton, proposed for October 7th. Now, I don't know what your opponent is doing over in Calhoun County, and he's not telling me, and he won't comment about that on the radio. But we seem to have had, even though this post was questionable, we seem to have had some changes in the South Central Calhoun curriculum as well that value equity. Now, that's a worthy goal, and we all want that. But this whole thing is a little unusual, to say the very, very least. We have a Facebook post that turns out to be, well, again, questionable. And we have a candidate, House Central, or House candidate, House Section 9, involved over in Calhoun County in changes in the South Central Calhoun curriculum. What can we make of all this, or how do you see all of this?
Well, I think that if there were actually, I'm certainly not naive to think that there could be some racial language going on out there. It's
you bet.
We taught our boy, that kind of talk and discrimination, and in any form, not color of your skin, but there are a lot of things that kids can talk about, if a person has a disability or if they're heavy, anything like that. We taught our son to respect everyone equally.
I'll tell you
I
something.
think that the school district definitely has to take this seriously and do what they can. And it sounds like they are doing a fine job of following through on investigation. I think that's what they need to do. I don't think that there's anything at a state level we can do in a school district, but I don't know.
I will tell you that I've been advertising myself as a doctor of truth for a long time. No,
I've heard that.
Yeah, that's kind of a chuckle and a joke and those sorts of things. But I'm real serious about it. I have a poster of Malcolm X in here, and it's right over there, as you've seen. You probably noticed it before. It's been here as long as I have been here.
Nothing's changed in the past few years.
Yeah, and well, Malcolm X believed in the truth. He believed in the truth. That's why he broke away from the Nation of Islam and eventually got himself killed. And I was impressed very much about this brave man's quest for truth. And that's really what I'm interested in, the truth. I'm not interested in song and dances or spin. But what bothered me about this entire thing is that we have policy changes and curriculum changes based on not the truth. Not the truth. The truth isn't entering into the conversation here necessarily. There's been some assumptions made that because this goes on, it should affect policy. And this is being spurred again by something that we don't know to be the truth at all. I believe if we're going to have change, we should stick to the truth. And I think there's plenty of truth out there as far as racism and inequity in our country.
Absolutely.
That we don't need to make a big deal out of something like this.
I think that you're right. There's a lot of racism and inequity out there. I completely agree with that.
Did you do it?
Did I do what?
Are you guilty of racism?
I'm not.
Neither am I.
I mean, I can just flat out say no.
Good for you. I could say that myself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have my biases. I'm a human being. Everybody has biases. But I don't come in here and start saying something I don't believe.
Right. There is a lot. If the high schools made some changes in their policies and their curriculum, I don't know that that's a bad idea because
that's
have
up
that
to them in the final analysis.
And we have that in the colleges too. In fact, my son he took, there was diversity training at Iowa State or education at Iowa State that all the students have to go through. And even in his master's program down in Kirksville, he just told me he went through a 9-hour diversity training just before he started the semester. So it's pretty common. I think that I think that's good, and it's in case people didn't get that at home for some reason. I don't think there's anything wrong with having that curriculum in there.
Okay. Well, so you and Charles Clayton are going to debate what, Monday?
Monday, yep. So we start at 6:30. The event starts at 5:30 with the sheriff's debate, and then we will be at 6:30, 45 minutes. Come on out. It's the same thing as an eggs and issues. Questions are submitted at the time, and I'd love you to come out and see what our differences are.
Yeah, and there'll probably be some similarities.
There'll be some similarities as well. Sure.
What have you been doing this week? You're somebody who kind of works year-round at this job.
Yeah. So this week, actually tomorrow, the Iowa Developmental Disability Council has a forum, a legislative forum. So I'll be participating in that with a few of my colleagues. Senator Reagan from up in Mason City area, and one of the representatives from the Sioux City area.
Okay.
And that's through, like I said, the Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council. And they are, from what I understand, they're mostly, there's a lot of concern about voting. They want to make sure they have good access to ballots, good access to polling centers. And we want that too, of course. Early voting, I believe, starts on Monday.
I think it does.
Yep. So absentee ballots will be mailed out. So anyway, I've been working on that this week. I've been door knocking. I mean, last weekend we are out talking to voters. My husband and I, last week I had a crew of friends come up from Des Moines and they helped door knock with me. I think people want to talk to you before they cast their vote. In fact, I talked to Nunes for Toma today, which is Terry Minke's group. And I had one fella who came up to me and said, hey, your husband came to my door and I wanted to let you know he asked for my vote, and that's a good thing because we don't give our vote unless we're asked.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to tell me a Glenn Beck story, but that's quite all right.
No. He's. I'll tell you what, though. I couldn't be more blessed. I could not have a better husband. He is so supportive, and I can't. I try to think of. We have a lot of. I have a lot of great friends with great husbands as well. I can't imagine anyone being more supportive than Jim. I mean, he's a great guy. We just have such a good partnership, and I'm really, really lucky.
Well, he's my doctor.
He is. He's one of them.
He's one of them. That's for sure. Well, I know that about your husband. He's loyal, and both of you are a great addition to our community. I'll tell you. I mean, since I know you've lived here many, many years now, and can't say enough about the two of you and the contributions that you've made. So
thank you.
Look forward to watching you and Jim and what you decide to do next.
Yeah.
So you are, of course, a nurse yourself, a medical professional yourself, and I did want to ask you about Medicaid. I probably asked you about that before, but do you agree with Governor Reynolds and her position on the privatization of Medicaid?
So that happened. That was one of the last things Governor Branstad did before he left office.
Right.
He turned over Medicaid. He converted Medicaid to privatization. You know what? I do agree with it. It is here to stay. And what we are doing as a member of the Human Resources Committee, not just a member, I am the vice chair of Human Resources Committee, and I sit on the Health and Human Service budget. We are focused on funding that program, and we are focused on fine-tuning it to make sure that people who need that extra safety net get the help they need. So remember Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3.2 million people in the state of Iowa. We have over 700,000 people on Medicaid. That is 22% of the population receives Medicaid benefits. And it's a healthcare coverage. There's no check involved with that. But it's a program that is administered by the state, and the companies that are in the MCOs, they are focused on making sure people get the care they need, but they're also focused on prevention. So they're focused on making sure people get the screenings they need. So problems don't get, you don't have to spend a ton of money on treatment if you prevent something. Also, if you screen for it early, you can treat, and there'll be better outcomes. So yeah, I am supportive of the Medicaid program. And I am also, though, I want to hear if there are problems out there. And I think I've said this, if I've said it once, I've said it 100 times on this show. If there are people out there who are having difficulties with the Medicaid problem, whether you are a member, a patient, or a provider, to reach out to me, because I can help navigate that and work on those problems for you. And I have, and I will continue to do that.
All right. Ann Meyer is our guest. We have about a minute left. I'm going to give that minute to you to sell yourself. What do you got to say?
You know what? People of Fort Dodge know, people of Webster County, of District 9 know that I have been here for you for the past 2 years. You reach out to me. You call me, you reach out to me on Facebook, you reach out to me on email. I've responded to you. I'm answering your calls. I am working on solving your problems. A lot of the problems we have worked on together have been solved, whether it's been a Medicaid problem, whether it's been a COVID issue with unemployment, whether it's there's been a multitude of things over the last 2 years that people have called me about. I've always been responsive, and I'm always going to continue.
All right, Ann Meyer, thank you very much.
B9. Yes, I have it on 3 of my cards.
How many bingo cards are you playing?
Hey, we got to find some way to make more money.
Well, after hearing about Joni Ernst voting to cut Medicare, I'm with you.
Voting to cut it by nearly $500 billion.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Well, and what worries me most is that Ernst backed a plan that would force us to pay $6,000 more a year for health care.
$6,000 more a year for each of us?
Exactly. And don't forget, Ernst also voted to let insurance companies charge an age tax on us.
Maybe she'll be different this time around.
Oh, I doubt it. Not only did she try to cut Medicare, she voted to hand trillions in tax giveaways to special interests like the ones funding her campaign.
So it's not looking good for us. How about we buy more bingo cards?
How about we vote against Joni Ernst? Bingo!
Paid for by DSCC, dscc.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. DSCC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Consumers everywhere are rediscovering the benefits of buying locally produced food. Not only is it fresher, tastier, and more nutritious, it's also good for the local economy. And did you know the country hearth breads you already love are baked right here in the Midwest? With 3 state-of-the-art facilities, freshly baked bread and buns are delivered every day to your neighborhood store. Village Hearth Breads, baking our best for you.
Hiring can be challenging, but ZipRecruiter makes it fast and easy. We talked to Monica Starks, who needed to hire for her company, GS Group.
As the owner of a construction company, finding the right people is a very difficult task. So I use ZipRecruiter.
ZipRecruiter finds the right people for your job and actively invites them to apply.
With ZipRecruiter, we've hired everyone from accountants to project managers to field scientists.
And now you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/trial. That's ZipRecruiter.com/trial.
It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You are listening to KVFD Radio in Fort Dodge, Iowa.
Still in a stalemate. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin in another day of meetings as they try to make progress in getting a new round of coronavirus relief that both sides can agree on.
We came down $1 trillion as a compromise to begin with. We then went further for another $200 billion, as I said earlier, not undermining our priorities.
House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy blasting Pelosi for not compromising.
When the much needed money for small businesses for their employees to stay open or to keep paying them, it was so popular that we're going to run out of money that the speaker was warned about it weeks in advance. She proudly stood at late night television in front of her refrigerator eating ice cream.
There is a House vote this evening on a $2.2 trillion package, but it's been rejected by Senate Republicans. A counteroffer from the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin is on the table. The White House continues to push claims of voter fraud, but has not provided evidence.
White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, in response to a question from Fox News Radio, unable to back up the president's claim that mail-in voter ballots have been found in a body of water.
We're specifically, in this particular statement, though, who is they that found those ballots, and where is this river anywhere in this country?
The local authorities. It was a ditch in Wisconsin that they were found, and I can get the article to your inbox if you like.
There is no record of votes being found in a river or a creek, as President Trump claimed at the first presidential debate. At the White House, John Decker, Fox News.
And the president responding to comments by the Commission on Presidential Debates that it's considering changing the rules after Tuesday's chaotic debate, tweeting, "Why would I allow the debate commission to change the rules for the second and third debate when I easily won last time?" America is listening to Fox News.
What do you get when you talk to a Dell Technologies advisor? You get someone who understands there's an art to listening, who's able to hear more than what's being said, and can provide tailored small business solutions that make you feel truly heard.
I understand. Let's get started.
For advice on everything from laptops to the cloud and solutions powered by Intel vPro platform, call an advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL.
Ahoy! Ahoy! Yoo-hoo! Ahoy! 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 Ahoy there! Ahoy! 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 In the name of the great Neptune! Ahoy!
Tides can turn quick on the water. Progressive's boat insurance has you covered with basic plans starting at $100 a year. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Annual premium for a basic liability policy not available in all states. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With your KVFD News Update, I'm Rob Jones. Friday evening, Fort Dodge Senior High will be holding their annual homecoming parade in downtown Fort Dodge. The parade will still be observed on Central Avenue as in years past. The staging area, however, has changed from the previous parade events. The Fort Dodge Police Department has announced the traffic closures associated with the parade. The staging area, the 900 and 1000 block of 2nd Avenue South, will be closed to all traffic beginning at 3 p.m. Friday afternoon until the start of the parade around 4 p.m. The pre-parade route will be a route taken from the staging area to the start of the parade, beginning at South 12th Street and 2nd Avenue South, ending at 14th Street and Central Avenue. Intersections along that route will be temporarily closed to allow participants to pass through. Those closures should last 10 to 15 minutes. For the parade route, traffic will be closed to Central Avenue at 15th Street, starting at Central Avenue and 14th Street, west on Central Avenue to the City Square. All intersections along Central Avenue will be closed to traffic during the parade. Volunteers will be at intersections to help direct traffic. Parade goers can view the parade from the sidewalks, and a reminder to please practice social distancing. The parade is expected to begin around 4 o'clock and last 30 to 40 minutes. After the conclusion of the parade, all roads will be reopened to regular traffic. The Webster County Public Health Department has announced the rescheduled date for its drive-through flu shot clinic. The clinic will be held this Saturday, October 3rd from 9 to 11 a.m. and will take place in the drive-through at Webster County Public Health's downtown location, 723 First Avenue South here in Fort Dodge. Public Health says that most insurance is accepted. Otherwise, the cost of the flu shot is $25. For questions, call the Webster County Public Health Department, 515-573-4107. The Community Health Center of Fort Dodge and Shimcat Motor Company have begun their annual coat drive titled Coats for Kids. They're seeking the community's help in filling the need for warm winter gear for local children. Donations of new or gently used clean coats, gloves, hats, snow pants, and boots are being accepted at multiple drop-off locations around Fort Dodge. Those locations include Shimcat Motor Company, Coldwell Banker, Mineral City Mill and Grill, Old Boston's, Sports Page, and Papa Murphy's Pizza. All sizes are needed from babies and toddlers to high schoolers. The collection
Live from the headquarters of Ramsey Solutions, broadcasting from the Dollar Car Rental Studio. This is the Dave Ramsey Show. It's where America hangs out to talk about life, money, your career, your relationships, your mental and emotional health. I'm Ken Coleman, host of the Ken Coleman Show, which is a part of the Ramsey Network, and I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. John Deloney, the host of the Dr. John Deloney Show on the Ramsey Network, and we together are here to take your questions. It is your show, America. The phone number is toll-free. It's 888-825-5225, 888-825-5225. Let's start it off with Blake in Wichita, Kansas. Blake, how can we help?
Hey, so I started on the whole baby steps and everything, but around August of last year. And then I had, I started paying things down and whatnot, because I know Ramsey's thing is you got to get current before you can, start the snowball, from my understanding. Then I had surgery in November, and then I was out till February, and then I got laid off in April, and then was laid off and didn't have a job for a couple months. And so we fell behind on things again. And so I'm just trying to figure out what I need to do to get back on track. Like, we're to the point now that we're almost caught back up, but I'm stuck in a pickle, to say the least.
You're rotating your language a little bit. You said I, and then you said we. So who's I and we?
Okay. I'm sorry.